And I see by my clock it's 3:30. So let's call the meeting to order of the Board of Trustees for Des Moines Waterworks. This is the September 22nd, 2020 meeting. Michelle, do you want to take the roll?
I sure will. Joel Ashburner.
Here.
Andrea Bolton.
Here.
Graham Gillette.
I am here.
Thank you. Sue Huppert. I didn't see her yet.
Sue is not.
Diane, of course.
Here.
I'm not aware that she wasn't going to be here. So
No, and I spoke with her earlier. I think she intends to be here. We have a quorum. It's 3:30. Why don't we start with the consent agenda? And I'm sure that Sue will join us as soon as she can. This is the minutes of our last meeting, the Planning Committee meeting, the Finance and Audit Committee meeting, financial statements, list of payments, summary of the CEO, expenditures in excess of $20,000, and the next meeting date set. Can I have a motion for us to accept the consent agenda, and then we'll ask Ted if there's anything you'd like to highlight.
So moved. Second.
Ted, is there anything in here of particular interest before we vote?
One thing I'll point out, Diane, item 1D is the expenditures over 20,000. There is one this month. Typically there is not, but there is one this month, and it is about 25,000 for a bar engineering to do some analysis of water availability in the Raccoon River, which was not budgeted but was completed and paid.
Questions? Hearing none. Michelle, you want to take the roll call vote?
Yep, and I'm just letting Sue in, so. Ashburner.
Yes.
Bolton.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Gillette.
Yes.
Sue, would you vote on accepting the consent?
So this is just accepting the
Yes,
consent agenda.
except, sorry,
Thank
kept
you.
spinning and wouldn't let me in. Was everybody else in a hold?
No.
Okay.
And Diane.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, the second item on the agenda is the public comment hearing and period. And is there anyone who would like to speak at this time?
Yes, Diane. Mike McKernan here from engineering. I am informed that we have a number of visitors today. And Michelle, if you could do please a stop share. She's going to invite a few people into the room here, and we've got somebody who would like to speak to us today. Is Mr. Colin Chung on the call today?
Yes, sir. I am here.
Okay, Colin, thanks for being with us. Folks, I would like to just let you know that annually, the American Waterworks Association and the Iowa section of the American Waterworks conducts an annual awards banquet. And there's some tradition and history with that. And the pandemic prevents an annual banquet from being held in 2020. But we've got a representative from AWWA that I will be lateraling to here in just a moment to discuss an important award for a member of our call today. So, Mr. Colin Chung is the president of Cayuga Solution Incorporated and lives in Laguna Niguel, California, and has been an active member of AWWA since 2005. Colin is the current chair of the International Council and has also served as the vice chair. He has also served as the chair of the California Nevada Section Asset Management Committee. Colin holds a Bachelor's of Science degree from Cornell University and a PhD from Purdue University. Colin, so if you wouldn't mind, I'd like you to take the floor, sir.
Yeah. Now, before I start, all my fellow Iowans might wonder, what is a California boy doing in the video here? Well, I requested that I could take part in the Iowa section because I grew up in Iowa. I grew up in Iowa City, went to high school in Iowa. Go West High, Trojans. And my father taught at the University of Iowa. So Iowa is dear to my heart, and it's where I still consider myself as a hometown growing up in Iowa City. So thank you so much for allowing me to take part in this incredible event here. So with that, let me just walk you through and give you a little description of the bio for the award. The Iowa section of AWWA 2020 George Warren Fuller Award winner grew up in the state's largest city, Des Moines, as the eldest of 3 children to Roger and Marilyn, older sibling to sister Paige and brother Jay. In 1981, our award winner graduated from Abraham Lincoln High School, and looking back to those high school days, a number of events clearly foreshadow the activities and accomplishments of our 2020 award winner. First, while many visit school libraries to find reading and resource materials, our honoree found romance, or maybe it found him. Legend has it that Linda Rush, a gymnast and a hurdler, had to leap and bound to get his attention. But hey, at least our recipient had his eyes open. Additionally, as a state qualifying swimmer for those rail splitters, it's clear that the principles of buoyancy, surface tension, friction, and gravity took hold early on for today's recipient. Our award winner also excelled in track and field events and was a state qualifier in the long jump. These athletic events indicate some adeptness at playing in the water and propensity to jump and move. A final bit of foreshadowing came when our honoree filled out an occupational bubble survey using number 2 pencil, of course, as there were no real computers yet, which indicated forest ranger or engineer as likely career selections. Much to the chagrin of future wife Linda and future children Ray, a biomedical engineer, and Lily, a music therapist, who are all unfortunately Hawkeyes, our award winner attended the esteemed Iowa State University of Science and Technology in Ames, Iowa, to study civil engineering. In an effort to experience and fully understand the color pageantry of civil engineering and Iowa State University, our honoree used 4.5 years to complete the required coursework and other activities. The additional half years in Ames, Iowa allowed for strong skills to develop, as present-day friends and colleagues will attest, affirm, and even swear to, when it comes to tailgating, our recipient is simply undefeated. The Iowa State experience culminated in Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering, bestowed in December of 1985. Hey, now, a quick math indicates that this is like 35 years ago. Amidst the final semester at the distinguished university in Ames, our award winner was invited to attend the Iowa Section's 1985 annual AWWA conference and give a presentation on VisiCalc, an initial version of today's spreadsheet tools. The 1-hour presentation resulted in an invitation from Mr. Bill Richardson to interview for an open position at Albert, Burdick, and Howson Engineers in Chicago. Mr. Richardson was intrigued at how our awardee could potentially use the software to complete water rate studies, and the interview was a success. The young engineer began employment in January 1986 with the firm Albert, Burdick, and Howson Engineers in downtown Chicago, affectionately known as AB&H. Our recipient did take a few days off the first spring to marry the gal from the library. They've been married happily ever since and have raised two incredible Hawkeye daughters. Outside of work, they both enjoy traveling abroad and partaking in a wide variety of activities in the great outdoors. They've been known to host honey harvest parties. As part of his initial work in Chicago, our awardee completed a water rate study for the DuPage Water Commission, along with surveying, field inspections, design work, financial analysis, and report writing. His extensive work on water distribution and sewer system improvements in the greater Chicagoland area lasted for nearly 4 years. Our honoree was described as an outgoing, hardworking, and exceptional young engineer who was a willing decision maker and possessed the communication skill necessary to support his decisions. The Chicago experience was steeped in a long, productive work days, but in a nod to civil engineers, the mass transit system in Chicago was embraced for his daily commute to and from work. Train rides home included beers for $1. Our honoree and colleague, Kevin Richardson, now a Fuller Award recipient himself from the Wisconsin section, were known to solve many an engineering problem while sipping beer from brown paper bags. Many thanks are due to American brewers for providing the necessary respite and reward these gentlemen. By early 90s, our recipient, following 4 years of honing his own version of the Chicago Bears Super Bowl shuffle, was made aware of a vacancy at Des Moines Waterworks. The Chicago and AB&H experience made our award winner an ideal candidate for the work back home. In June of 1990, the native Iowan shuffled back to his hometown to begin employment at Des Moines Waterworks. His career at Des Moines Waterworks has spanned over 30 years, encompassing a variety of different positions and opportunities: engineer, senior engineer, director of water production, director of water distribution, chief operating officer, and now CEO and general manager. It seems our long jumping award winner just can't sit still or maintain a job. This may sound a bit concerning at first, but witnesses will contend that each and every day has been spent carefully observing and directing projects, both large and small, that serve Des Moines Waterworks and its 500,000 regional residents. A mere 3 years after a recipient joined the Des Moines Waterworks team came the infamous flood of 1993. Our awardee took on a variety of plants and distribution-focused projects during flood recovery and joined the whole Des Moines Waterworks team to shut up and sandbag. As a senior engineer, our awardee focused his work efforts on implementing new hydraulic modeling software and managing the addition of the utilities and the state's first full-scale ASR well. After a move to water production in 2000, our recipient directed the implementation of Des Moines Waterworks' first computerized maintenance management software. Additionally, while in water production, he began having Thursday morning meetings, which to update department employees on happenings in the utilities at large and respond to any questions or comments that they had directly. Our honoree took this idea with him when he was reassigned as a director of water distribution in 2006. The Thursday morning meetings have become staple of subsequent managers in each of these departments. This recipient's service to larger water community has included more than a decade as the Iowa AWWA section treasurer and close collaborations with numerous boards and committees composed of a wide variety of water professionals across Iowa. As Des Moines Waterworks Chief Operating Officer, he led the development of a comprehensive proposal for regional governance of drinking water production and continues to advocate for this project today. After untimely passing of Bill Stowe in April of 2019, Des Moines Waterworks Board asked our award winner to serve as interim CEO and general manager for the utility. The response that day was a crisp, yes, it would be an honor. In the spring of 2020, this exceptional engineer and willing decision maker used 35 plus years of engineering and operational experience to guide Des Moines Waterworks through a pandemic response. From the onset, our honoree worked closely with staff as they developed the necessary technical elements of the plan. Additionally, timely communication efforts by our recipient kept staff and board members apprised of the plan, as well as the importance of the community served. Nationwide search by the Des Moines Waterworks Board in the summer of 2020 resulted in our award winner being tabbed as the CEO and general manager. And his persistent, steadfast leadership will help Des Moines Waterworks continue to develop important water quality initiatives for years to come. On behalf of American Waterworks Association, the Iowa Section's 2020 George Warren Fuller Award winner is Mr. Ted Corrigan. Ted, thank you for your service to your community, to the Iowa Section, and to the broader water profession in the state of Iowa. Congratulations on this well-deserved and important award.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Ted.
Thank you. What an honor, first of all. And Colin, I sorry for the length of the bio that you just had to read, but hopefully it gave me time to collect myself a little bit.
It's a good story. I feel like I haven't met you in person, but I feel like I know you very well.
Well, yeah. After that, I think everybody knows me a little better. That's great. Thank you for whoever contributed to that. Kevin, hello.
Ted.
What an honor to have you, as well as all of the other Fuller Award winners who have taken the time to come and be a part of this. You know, I
just want to say it's a well-deserved honor, and telling you about the ad in the Tribune and the Sunday Tribune worked out okay.
Well, yeah, that was Kevin was the one who pointed out that the Des Moines was looking for an engineer. The rest is history. But I will say this is a high honor. Color me shocked here right now. I had no idea this was coming. I've sat through like 35 of these over the years at all these AWWA conferences, and I always wondered how the people made it through without just bawling their eyes out when their family showed up and kind of rushed into the room.
Ted, maybe we'll take a second here and have Colin. I know that there are a number of you who are very aware of what this award, the Fuller Award, is, but if Colin, could you just take a minute? We'll let Ted compose himself and tell us about the award and how the recipient is chosen.
To my best knowledge, the award is for those people that went beyond and above and beyond in the professional water industry, and to provide the benefits for all. And it has historically been given to those engineers and operation professionals that have really led the water quality and the betterment of water for everybody. But having read and gone through Ted's bio, and I can see why, Ted. And every step of the way that you've pushed yourself towards the water people of Iowa, but also as a professional yourself, has really climbed up the ranks and really proven yourself over and over. But your ability to adapt to new technology and deploy that technology for the efficiency and effectivity of the water management, But, I'm an engineer myself, and one thing that we are not that good at is typically communication. We're not so strong in reading and writing, but, what you have done is really brought your communication and leadership skills to bring the whole team in. And I think that in itself, along with your technical solid engineering, as well as technical capability in bringing information systems and utilizing water model, really helps to prove your why you deserve this. And also, I hope you become the exemplary figure for other engineers in Iowa to really follow and then take you on as a role model for the future.
It's an amazing process at the conference. For those of you who haven't been to one, I'll get through this and then we can move on. But the former Fuller Award winners normally kind of start to mingle around the room, and they all know who the person is, and then they kind of congregate around that person towards the end of the bio. And so it's pretty neat, and it's a neat experience. And this one is a little different, but I'll have to say equally as neat. And thank you to Kevin and Carla and Mark and John and Ed. And there are some people here who are just iPhones and different things that I can't be sure. So hopefully I didn't miss any of the former Fuller Award winners, but thank you to you all for taking the time. What an amazing honor. I'm floored, frankly. Thank you.
Ed, you mentioned the former award winners, but there's been a friendly request from the crowd. If you could introduce your family members. The Zoom has allowed some people from across the country to be here today. Can you introduce your family to the group?
Absolutely. First, my wife, who's on screen here listed as Julie McKernan, but that's actually my wife. It must be at Julie's house, and my mother-in-law there. My two daughters, the eldest, Rayanne and Lily, are both here too. And my mom and my sister, my mother, Marilyn, is there, my sister, Paige, and her husband, Paul, and my nephew, Henry. And then my younger brother, Jay, who is in Ohio. And I think, again, there are a few iPhones and things I don't recognize, but a few other people. I think that's everybody.
Okay.
And
Well,
Kevin is basically family too, as it turns out. So Kevin Richardson taught me how to drink beers out of a paper bag on a train. I guess. That's it, yeah.
Well, I want to thank everybody, our board. We really appreciate the flexibility here. We do have official business to conduct today, and I guess I'd like to make a motion, if I could, for thanking all of our special guests. And Colin, I had no idea that you were a beloved Hawkeye, but thank you for reading that bio with the spirit with which it was written. I would now invite our guests to just simply wave goodbye, a thumbs up, and the Waterworks company will get back to that moving projects forward business here. So thank you all.
Thank you. Congratulations again.
Congrats, Ted.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congrats, Ted.
Congrats.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Ted.
Congratulations.
It's tailgate in Iowa City.
Congratulations, Ted. Well deserved.
Yeah, congrats, Dad.
Thank you.
Bye.
And congratulations, Ted. I don't know if you're ready now to
Oh, I'm fine.
to take on.
unprepared.
I need to close the public comment period, which I will do right now, unless there's anybody else who has something that can top that. All right, the public comment period is closed. We'll move on to the action items. The first item is acceptance of the joint Maffett Lake Booster Station. Ted, you want to take us through this is?
I'll give you an overview here. This project, Diane, is one of many great examples of regional cooperation that we're able to bring to the board. Acceptance of the joint Maffett Lake Booster Station. This is a project that's one phase of a four-phase project. The booster station is this project. The other phases were primarily transmission, taking water from the McMullen plant to West Des Moines, Cumming, and Norwalk. With the completion of this phase, all 4 phases are now complete, and that project is in service and providing water primarily to Cumming and Norwalk at this point. There was one change order, is actually a small deduction after a little bit of back and forth on a number of little items that changed, but the project was completed on budget and is done now. Important to note that 100% of the cost of this project will be paid by Cumming, Norwalk, and West Des Moines, including our staff time as well as the contracted work. So we would ask that the board accept the project.
Thank you. Can I have a motion and a second, then we'll take questions?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions for Ted on this? Bring it here. Hearing none, Michelle, would you like to take the roll call?
Yes, Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the authorization to issue a purchase order for the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant ultrafiltration membrane replacement. Ted?
Yes, the membranes in our membrane plant are basically consumables. They have to be replaced from time to time. Important point on this particular item is that the first set of membranes that we installed, the first set of ultrafiltration membranes, which is the first step of the process. The first set did not perform as anticipated or as advertised, and so we did, back at that time, work with GE to reach a warranty settlement, if you will. And not only did they replace the membranes that were not performing, but they also gave us a greatly reduced price that we could use to purchase membranes going forward to sort of account for the fact that that first set of membranes had a greatly shortened life. And so that letter that the UF module replacement letter of agreement that we entered into with GE that gives us a very attractive price will expire at the end of this year, at the end of 2020. We had budgeted to replace 2 trains. There are 4 total trains at the Saylorville treatment plant. We had budgeted to replace 2 of those trains in 2020 to take advantage of that very attractive price. But as we've tracked performance data through this year, we realize that we're going to need to replace a 3rd train sometime early in 2021. And it's all based on performance of the membranes, which is tracked very carefully. So the decision has been made to go ahead and request permission from the board to purchase 3 trains at this time because we can get a greatly reduced price on that 3rd train. And instead of budgeting more money next year and buying them next year, we're proposing to buy that 3rd train as part of this approval and defer some work, some capital work related to the filters at Fluor Drive treatment plant to next year, something that, you know, we can save some money by doing that, by moving that purchase into this year of the membranes and using money that was going to be used on the filters and deferring that work to next year. So that's what we're bringing forward to the board here today, is actually the purchase of 3 trains worth of membranes, 900 membrane modules. 600 were anticipated in this year's budget. We'll cover the cost of the rest of that by deferring some filter work at Fluor Drive into next year. And we have received a quote or a proposal, a membrane replacement proposal from the supplier for just over $1 million to replace 900 membranes, and we would ask authorization to move forward with that proposal. Diane, you're muted.
Can I have a motion and a second, and then we will take questions?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions for Ted on this project?
Ted, just out of curiosity, I remember my introduction tour and the membranes kind of being a very challenging piece of the process. Over the past 5 years, have you guys seen any improvement in the construction or the technology of these membranes that they won't continue to be as challenging?
I would say, Andrea, that there certainly has been improvement, uh, especially compared to the first set of membranes that we put in, that we negotiated the warranty replacement agreement based on. We're seeing better performance out of the membranes, not as good as we'd like to see. They are still expiring, if you will, or aging out a little more quickly than we'd like to see, but they do continue to improve. We hope that that trend will continue and we will get to the point where we will get the appropriate number of years out of them. I'm looking to see if Kyle is still with us, to see if he has anything more specific that he'd like to add to that, but I'm not seeing. There he is. Kyle, do you have anything you would add to that description of our experience with the membranes?
No, I agree. They certainly have been performing much better than the previous first set. The break rate, though, as we have to do a lot of cleans on them, certainly is higher than what we anticipated when we first did them. And as they age and as they've gone through more cleans, requires a lot more time from staff to repair the membranes. But I would agree with Ted's comments. Again, we certainly saw a big improvement on this last set. We were learning more about the membranes as well. And so I hope that the newer models will continue to improve, but it is still disappointing that we're not getting the years of service out of them that we were originally sold on when we purchased them. And a lot of that varies dependent on the water quality from different utilities, from what I've heard of what type of raw water quality you have and how they foul and things like that. So hopefully we'll continue to see improvement, but we are getting much higher performance than we did previously.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Michelle?
Ashburner,
Yes.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Yes.
Hubbard, Munns.
Yes.
Thank you.
This next item 3C is the Chapter 28E agreement between Des Moines Waterworks and the Iowa Governmental Health Care Plan for Employee Benefits. I'm going to ask Ted to take us through this. There are a number of pieces to it. I think we're all fairly familiar with this, as we all spent quite a bit of time looking at this as we went through the process of looking at options. So Ted, you want to take us through what we need to do? And
Yes, and as I do that, in your packets, obviously for each of the board members, but also Michelle has shown on screen here a number of motions that are included as part of this agenda item. I think there are actually 7 total motions that we would like the board to take to allow us to move forward with what we're proposing here in terms of employee health insurance. And you will recall that for the past several years, we have been working with the city of Des Moines to obtain employee health insurance in partnership with the city. Last year, our insurance premium increase was about 22% from the city based on our experience, which wasn't very good last year. And so the board did make some adjustments in the payments that they make for insurance to help sort of mitigate the impact on employees. But after that happened, we all agreed that it would be important for us to look at other options. And so we actually had Holmes Murphy go out and get quotes from 3 or 4 different entities that we could compare to what we have currently with the city. And the board, staff, union leadership have all seen a presentation on the insurance program that we believe is in the best interest of Des Moines Waterworks and our employees, and frankly, probably the by far the most viable option, and that is to go with the Iowa Governmental Health Care Plan Trust. And the IGHCP is a group of about 35 cities and counties and a couple of water utilities across the state of Iowa, including the city of Waukee, the city of Clive, Council Bluffs Waterworks, who have all sort of banded together and buy their insurance as a group in an effort to get the lowest possible rate. IGHCP has given us a quote that we think is very attractive. We think moving to the trust, which will incorporate our employees into a much larger group. They have about 9,000 lives in this group, and we think that that will really help stabilize our insurance premiums from year to year over time. So we are proposing a number of things here for the board's consideration today. The three, generally speaking, three things which are listed in the memo here. We want to replace the existing healthcare coverage that we work with the city to obtain with coverage that we would obtain through IGHCP, same provider in terms of actual insurance provider, but a different mechanism for getting there. We want the board's permission to enter into the 2080 agreement with IGHCP for health insurance coverage. And then we want the board's permission to terminate our participation in the city's plan by sending them a letter, but continue to participate in group benefits with the city for employee life insurance and disability insurance. So that's what we're trying to accomplish here. There are a series of 7 motions that you have in front of you and are displayed on the screen that we would like to ask the board to entertain at this time.
I just say council has advised that we can vote on this as a package and take action to approve all of the steps that are necessary to execute the severance of our agreement with the city of Des Moines and entering into a new agreement with the trust. Rick, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
And,
so
and I would say it's particularly appropriate to do that because these are all interconnected things that need to be accomplished as one implementation of a basic decision to make the switch to the different plan.
okay, so with that, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the resolutions necessary to transition our healthcare plan from the city of Des Moines to the Iowa Governmental Health Care Plan.
In the form as displayed, I would suggest that addition.
In the form as displayed.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions about this? As I said, I know we've spent a lot of time on it, but if there are any questions, go ahead and ask Ted.
Diane, I think that there may be somebody from the union or one of the employees that may want to speak too.
Okay.
Bill, you want to go ahead?
Yes, I do. I'd first like to say congratulations on your award, Ted. That's pretty impressive.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that.
I'd just like to comment on the insurance. We appreciate the board helping the employees last year with the insurance contribution. It helped us protect our take-home pay. We understand there's another large increase coming again. We are respectfully asking if you would consider something similar this year. Hopefully this is the last steep increase we have due to the new plan. Thanks for your consideration and thank the board members for serving.
Diane, I think you're muted.
Thank you for those remarks. I mean, I think that's an item that is separate from this, and we will have to take it into consideration when we look at what the increase is. Are there any other questions on this item?
What is the timing of that, Ted, of when we'll discuss that, the amount?
You know, Graham, I think that's the very next step. So we will get the quote from IGHCP, assuming that that's what the board decides to do here. And we will lay that out. I mean, there are a number of considerations there. We had the extra amount that the board approved last year as a one-time, and whether that is going to be, if we're going to do that again. And then I think we should also consider whether we want to change our approach a little bit from a specified dollar amount that the Waterworks contributes to more of a percent. And that's something that I'm going to want to talk about with the union, because that's contractually agreed to. And I think we need to come to some sort of a conclusion with the union in terms of what is included in the contract and what we might want to do differently, and then bring that to the board for consideration. But I think we need to have that decided by the end of the year, but I'd like to see us start working on it here in the next month.
So that I understand the process, right? You and Doug and the team will kind of get together and work through some concepts. Then you'll have a conversation with the union to talk about what those concepts could be, and then come back to us. Am I thinking of that the right way?
Yes, I would say so, Graham. We really have about 3 questions in my mind. One is related to the additional amount that was added last year. One is to whether we want to do that again for the coming year. And then one is if we want to change the approach from a specific dollar amount to a percentage.
Well, thank you. Not knowing any more than what you just said, I appreciate what you're doing there, Ted. I think this is an opportunity for us to look at that, look at the way we fund health insurance. I know this is a worrisome thing, not only for Des Moines Waterworks and ratepayers, but for our employees. Every year there's this surprise, and obviously adopting this new relationship hopefully begins to get at that. But I appreciate your willingness to look at the formula that we use, for lack of a better word, and look forward to what you bring back.
Good, thank you.
Can we now take a vote? I'd like to get through this step before we move on to the next one. Michelle?
Asper? Yep, sorry.
Yes.
Bolton?
Yes.
Gillette?
Yes.
Hubbard?
Yes.
Moines?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Michelle, can you tell me, am I doing something wrong? I didn't see anything popped up that said that someone wanted to speak.
No, I think Ted was just aware that Bill was on the meeting and would want to speak. I didn't see a hand raised either.
Oh, okay. Well, that would be helpful to me. Okay.
Sorry.
The next item is the CEO and General Manager Employment Agreement, and I will take this one. Ted, I won't make you present this one.
Yeah, I've had a tough enough time already, I think.
Yeah, okay. Following Ted's appointment at our June 22nd meeting, the board asked Graham and I if we would represent the board in the negotiation for the employment contract. It's been a little bit to get through this. I'm not trying to present that there were difficulties. It's just, I think, the difficulty of COVID and trying to do everything remotely. We do have a recommendation to the board, and it has been presented to you, and so that's what this item is. And with that, I think that we will take a motion to authorize me to execute the contract on behalf of Des Moines Waterworks with Ted Corrigan. If we could have that motion and second, I think both Graham and I would entertain any kinds of questions. I also want to acknowledge the help of Doug and Rick in getting this done. They also were of assistance in this process.
So moved.
Second.
We've had a chance to look at it. Are there any questions for Graham or for me on the recommendation that you have before you? Hearing none. Michelle, would you like to take a...
Yep, I'll just say, Diane, I appreciate your work on this and Ted's work on this. It was a deliberative process. And the one thing that, I think you'll see in this contract that, makes me happy and makes it easy for us is a lot of the things in this contract follow what the employees do. For instance, annual raises and all of those things. And I think that's an important part of leadership. And I appreciate Ted's approach to that because it was clear to me in every part of the negotiation that Ted understood that he was part of a team and he wasn't different from the team. And I thought that was laudable.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Michelle, would you take the roll call vote?
Ashburn,
Yes.
Bolton,
It looks like she's saying yes, but you can't hear her.
We can't hear you.
Yes. Sorry. You could not get that mute button to go. Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Thanks.
All right, Ted, it's official. It was official before, but now it's officially official.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Well,
it.
maybe it isn't until we both sign it. So maybe I'll put that off.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on the agenda is one
Diane,
that we...
Before we move on, I note in the agreement that's attached to the board documents in section 5 at the very end, there's a drafter's note that certain language was to be subject to review. I asked that note be deleted from the final signed document, and I'll ask Doug and Michelle to make sure that occurs before the agreement is tendered for actual signature.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. That's all right. COVID-19 response. Ted, what's happened?
I'm sorry. I'm happy to report that we really haven't had to do too much differently in the last month. We were really kind of settling in, but there are a few things that have happened that I'll make the board aware of. We did get some partitions installed, some cubicles, if you will, in the open area in customer service, which has allowed our customer service reps to move back into the customer service call center. I will say that they are almost universally very happy to be out of their windowless cubes and into the customer service area together, where they can see the customers who walk in and see each other and see the sun, frankly, and work together. So that's been a real positive thing. We also have started moving our vehicles that have been going home every night back into the garage. And so there have been a few water productions that are already back in the garage. I believe customer service field is going to be back in the garage effective next week. And then after that, our field locators and our engineering techs are going to bring their vehicles back. And we're still going to try to maintain spacing and distancing and appropriate interactions in the garage as they're coming in and out and getting their vehicles, but we're going to get them back on campus where the garage has better access to them and we can start fueling them instead of asking the employees to fuel them themselves and some of those kind of things. So those kind of things where we've learned a lot. We feel pretty comfortable in our processes and our programs here, and we're starting to try to get back to normal before the weather gets cold so that folks aren't trying to have their morning meetings in parking lots and outdoors around the utility. That's all moving in the right direction, I believe. Still have a few people working from home. That's mostly on a rotational basis now, where people will be off or are not off, certainly not off, but working from home for a week or two at a time, and then back in to the office for a week or two to maintain some continuity with what's going on here in the office. And that seems to be working very well, frankly. And we still have all of our temporary employment policies in place related to work from home, taking vehicles home, all of the policies related to emergency paid sick leave and emergency FMLA still in place, just the way they have been now for several months, frankly. We really haven't had any additional expenses related to COVID to speak of in the last month. So we have now submitted our reimbursement request to FEMA through their portal, and we are waiting for their response. And if we don't get a response, Graham has put me in contact with some resources that may be able to help us elicit a response if we don't hear what we need to hear. But we're patiently waiting here for the time being, and then if we don't hear anything, we will be reaching out. But we have submitted our reimbursement request. Yes, Graham.
Have we made sure that our congressional representatives are aware of this?
We have been in contact with our congressional representatives early on, but I don't know that, I can't say, Graham, that we have made them aware that our request has been submitted, but we can certainly do that.
I would do so, most as both a courtesy to them, but also if they're willing to help, they may do so.
Yes, I think that's a good call, and we'll make sure that they're aware. They're certainly aware of the things we were doing, and especially, the campers and the sequestering and some of the challenges we had with obtaining CO2. They were very interested and helpful, frankly, and so we'll make sure they're aware.
Yeah, I mean, you know how to do this, but when you let them know, thank them for their past help and provide the update and let them know where we are. I think that, as I say, it's part courtesy, but it's also we're asking for their assistance.
Agreed. Got it. That's really the update for this month. We have not asked for ratification of our plan because there really isn't anything that needs to be ratified this month. So more of an informational update, even though it's in the action item section here.
Are there questions for Ted? I have a couple. One is, how many positives have you had for the virus? How are you managing that? And my second one is not entirely COVID, although I think everything bad this year is related to COVID, and that's cleanup from the derecho and
Right. In terms of positives for COVID and employees who have tested positive, we've had a very small number, 2 or 3. We had 2 who actually officially tested positive, and then we had at least 1 other employee who had a family member test positive, and then they became ill and they never did get tested, but we have to assume that they were also positive. So a very small number, and that's great that we are seeing such a small number. It means our folks are taking care of themselves and being careful and doing the things they need to do to avoid being infected. Maybe even more importantly is, at this point at least, we are confident that we have not had spread at work. So the people who did become infected did not spread it to anyone else here on campus. And that's very positive, because that was our biggest fear early on, was that someone would bring it to work and then their whole work group would become infected. But the policies and practices that we have in place seem to have been very effective in that regard. At least we believe so, and we hope so. We are seeing more employees who have family members test positive or who have direct contact with someone who is tested positive. And in those cases, we are asking those folks who have someone in their home who's tested positive to stay home for 2 weeks. We have, as an example, right now today, 2 people who are at home because someone in their household has tested positive. And they will stay home for 2 weeks, make sure that either they don't become infected, or if they do, that it runs its course and then they can come back to work safely. So that's pretty much where we are there. Any questions about that specifically? And then related to the derecho, we were pretty fortunate. You know, we had the big impact for us was power outages that impacted our remote facilities. So we had a number of facilities, about a dozen that lost power, not treatment plants, but things like booster stations and towers where we have to be able to see what the level is, and other sensors out in the system that just kind of help guide the process. We had a number of facilities that we had to set temporary generators for and keep them fueled for a period of days, but we got through that pretty much in the first week. In terms of damage to facilities, we really didn't have a lot of damage to facilities, anything particularly notable, but we did have fairly significant damage to the trees in Waterworks Park and at Maffett Reservoir. Much of that is cleaned up. Our folks did as much as they could, and then we did have a tree service come in. It took them a few weeks to get here because obviously they were incredibly busy, but they did get here and clean up some trees. A couple of signature trees that we all feel pretty bad about. There's a huge cottonwood that's just west of the amphitheater that's really a signature tree in the park, and a big chunk of that broke and had to be taken out. And then there's a beautiful pin oak that's in the arboretum just to the south of where the paths go down to the underpass. It's just a gorgeous tree, and a big part of the top of that got broken out. So both of those have been pruned up as best as we could, and we'll see how they go, see if they live. I've talked to Jessica about both of those, and she's cautiously optimistic, but that's probably the biggest loss that we've had, Diane, is some pretty significant trees in the park. You're muted, Diane.
Michelle, I'm going to move over to a different device. So if you can let me in, my battery is winding down. Other questions for Ted?
I don't necessarily have a question for Ted, and nor am I advocating that we meet in person soon, but at what point does the board want to discuss in-person meetings again?
Good question, Graham. I'll offer two thoughts for the board's consideration. One is this week we'll be moving our customer service reps out of the boardroom, so it would at least be available. I think we've indicated that we would do virtual meetings through the end of the year.
I think that makes sense.
Those are a couple of points of information that you can use in your discussion.
That's helpful. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I think I'm glad you raised the question, Graham, because I think virtual meetings through the end of the year is appropriate, but Ted said it, we're kind of starting to settle in, and I think we're all getting more comfortable and used to, the changes to our daily lives to, keep ourselves safe and what we can't, the parts of our lives we can return to with extra precautions. And so I think it's appropriate to at least start thinking about it, but virtual through the end of the year seems good to me.
I agree, Joel. And as far as flexibility, I think when we get ready to come back, if we came back after the first year, I think there's options. I mean, we could meet in a bigger space. We could meet in the atrium, for instance, if that helped spread people out. And we don't have to make those decisions now, but I like the idea of maybe in December or thereabouts having a discussion for that plan. That makes me comfortable.
I support having a conversation at the end of the year. I think it's interesting to me, just kind of as a side note, but it fits with this conversation, that we are seeing so many people and so many businesses and so many organizations return to normal when we're actually kind of a little bit at a worse position than we were when we were shutting things down. So I think that we've come a long way in understanding how we can be with each other in a safe manner. And I think that's a driving decision maker, but it does kind of make me raise an eyebrow saying we were shutting things down when Iowa had 60 people sick, and now we're seeing 1,200 people sick, and we're cool. Open it up.
You are so right. You are so right. And you
I
know,
think
the only other thing I would add on this is that I hope when we do come back, we continue to utilize this format. You know, I think we've had a lot of people engage with us, and the ease of people being able to join us in a Zoom meeting is great. If one of us or a couple of us aren't able to attend a Zoom type of format, you know, on a big screen in the room, it's so much easier and better than calling in on a phone. So I hope when we do go back to in person, we actually continue to use the technology.
I agree. I think we should evaluate in a couple months. Who knows where we'll be once the cold weather comes. And then I really think that if somebody feels uncomfortable on the board, they should have the option of attending remotely, and that we really shouldn't force anybody into an in-person position if they have discomfort with it.
I think one of the few benefits of having lived through this pandemic is that we've really all learned how to use this technology so much more effectively. And why would we abandon it? I hope that we can have that option often, and then it will be so much easier for board members who are traveling to participate, and we will definitely make that a possibility for going forward indefinitely.
I imagine after today, Ted, your family will drop into these meetings on a regular basis.
You know, I saw my girls pop in there and I thought, what on earth is going on? What are they doing? And why do they have their cameras on? And why are they calling themselves by their names if they're spying on me?
Take your child to work day.
I don't know why they left before all the fun and interesting items.
I don't know. Completely caught off guard by that whole thing.
That's funny. Funny. Good. Then we succeeded in what we were trying to do.
Boy, you did.
And thank you to staff for putting that together. They really
did
it, and they pulled it over on you.
Appreciate being able to be a part of that. That was very cool. Thank you all.
Yeah, it was amazing. Thank you.
Mike, thank you for your help. Ted, when we received the note from Mike, it was almost like he was apologizing, like, would you mind if we took some time at a board meeting? And everybody was like, bring it on. We're all looking for good news.
Yeah.
Well, and I could hear Mr. McKernan's fingerprints all over that little bio too there. Things that very few people know about me were just shared with the group.
And I'll just say I had forwarded to me today, I had not seen it, Ted's picture on the front of the business record. Has everybody seen that? So it's been quite a week for you.
Yeah, true. Very true.
We could make sure that goes out to everybody. Let's move through the information items, board committee reports. Planning committee.
You guys saw the notes in the board packet. I guess the quick things I'd like to point out is that with the PFAS, that with the monitoring wells installed, we're continuing to keep that top of mind and working to make a prioritization with the Air Guard and DNR. Frankly, most of you guys were a part of that meeting, so I don't want to dive in too deep, but wanted to bring that to attention, and also just give a thankful note that we didn't have to really get deep into our water shortage plan. Very lucky and thankful for that week of rain that shortly followed. But I don't, Ted or anybody, do you have anything else you want to add to those notes?
Those were the highlights.
Yep.
Thanks, Andrea. The Finance and Audit Committee.
As you all know, we continued to discuss the wholesale rate structure, and so I won't go into that in great detail. And the other part of that meeting was a request for Ted to put together a RFP, for lack of a better term, on legal services, which I know is in process. And you don't really have to provide an update on that, Ted, unless there's something, but I know it's in the works.
Correct. No update from me.
Thank you. Customer Relations Committee.
Diane and I have continued to have meetings with Ted and Amy and West Des Moines and Urbandale. And surprisingly, there are considerations of bringing all assets together and language being brought from the other two entities, and just everyone seems to be playing really nice in the sandbox together. And between the meetings, we are having subcommittee meetings to talk about things like governance. And Diana and I always say, none of this has come before our board, but we've had a lot of general conversations. So everyone agrees that by the end of the year, we would hope to have something that we could bring back to all of our boards, if not before. Major shout out to Amy Kaler. You know, the big question on depreciation has been, we're at one level, West Des Moines at another. And she has just, I can't even imagine how long it has taken for her to put together some information for us to, at our next meeting, start to jump into those conversations, because there are negative impacts to the other regional utilities. If they are talking about reducing the depreciation, you know, we have not, we've based all of our rates on our depreciation being much longer. And I think finally, through this work that Amy did, it becomes real crystal clear that everyone in the region has benefited from the way that we have outlined this. And I hope everyone looks at it that way, but thank you, Amy. I know you spent a huge amount of time on it. Diane, am I missing anything?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we need to do a deeper dive with the board as to where we are right now at the future customer relations committee. And as Sue said, we have made it very, very clear that our entire board needs to be on board with these discussions, and that this is tentative. So that's where we are.
Sue, I found that to be a very promising update, and I'm glad to hear it. And I really appreciate your work and Diane's on this committee. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Diane's done an amazing job. I mean, I think it takes a long time to develop these relationships, but, you know, having the background of rate paying, rate setting, and some of that expertise is really coming into play now. So kudos to her.
I'll echo that, and appreciate both your work on this. Is the plan then to kind of bring us all back together next month to get a deeper update on where things are and what some of the specifics of the conversations that you guys have been having? Do we have a timeline on that?
I think we would be ready to do that. And again, most of these things we have all agreed to as a board, or generally said in concept, we like that idea. And so, yeah, I don't think it's going to be any kind of a big surprise. I'm just pleased at some of the movement that we're seeing from Urbandale and West Des Moines that I think, to me, quite frankly, was a little bit surprising.
I think customer relations in October would be a great opportunity for us to bring the board up to date. And I would encourage all members of the board, if you're available on the 6th of October, to participate in that meeting. And I think that would be timely based on the progress that we've had, and a good opportunity for us to share where we're at.
Yeah, because I think we don't want to get too far out over our skis here. So I think if we can do these touch base things so that everybody can understand and give some input to us, that'd be helpful.
Agreed.
Okay, Bill Stowe Memorial Committee.
Yeah, I don't really have anything new to report on the Bill Stowe Committee. We're still working on that, and we'll be back at a later date. I can move into the Botanical Garden Board. As you're aware, Stephanie Judula has left as CEO at the garden. I was asked on our behalf as the Moines Waterworks representative on that board to serve on the search committee which I've agreed to do. That first meeting of that search committee is tomorrow. It's a good committee. It contains Janice Ruan and folks we all know, and so I'll keep you updated on that process and how they're moving forward on that. And so related to that, we've had a discussion here about our relationship, meaning Des Moines Waterworks relationship with the garden. We haven't pursued anything on that due to this change, but the chair and the acting CEO, Mary Sellers, is aware that this conversation needs to be held, but we haven't had it.
Thanks. Foundation board.
Again, the foundations provided some pretty extensive notes in your packet. The discussion about continuing to fundraise and close the gaps on on the project is still top of mind with the foundation, and an intention to look at bigger events next year to do that, as well as private fundraising. The other thing that I would call out is I don't know if anybody had a chance to participate in the fall flight and the Labor Day picnic celebration. That was a great way to get people in the park and start talking about those private contributions to make the improvements possible. And then there's also an updated calendar of events included in the notes.
Yeah, well, I think people have certainly been using the park. We're down there quite a bit on our bikes, and there are people all over the place.
Well, having the connector open, I guess that's a big, other big note to point out, is that the connector between Gray's Lake and the park is finally opened. And I think you're absolutely right. It's getting a lot of use and bringing a lot of people into the park.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Lights too, they're just gorgeous.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
You know, and let me just add kind of where Andrea started on that. You know, I am very proud of the way that this board and Des Moines Waterworks formed its relationship with the foundation, because there is no shortfall on our side. You know, everything that has been built and planned for in the park that Waterworks owns now, thanks to the foundation, the amphitheater and all those things. None of that work was started until the money was in hand. It's been a great relationship, and I'm so proud that there's no shortfall, and that the foundation continues to work so hard to think about what's next.
Great. Okay, CEO and general managers comments and the goals update.
Yeah, a couple of things from me. You're all aware that Laura has taken another opportunity here at Des Moines Waterworks, which left an opening in her former role. And we've done a couple of things in an attempt to fill that gap. One thing that we did was we did hire Melissa Walker, who joined us today as a consultant. She will not be a Des Moines Waterworks employee, but she's going to help us with PR and some of the things that Laura used to do: newsletters, customer newsletters, employee newsletters, a lot of PR sort of things. She will be able to help me with if I need to, write an op-ed or any of those kind of things. And so she's going to be probably a familiar face sitting in on some of our board meetings. She's here today so that you could all see her and know her. And thank you to Graham for helping make that connection. But I think that's going to be a great opportunity for us to do some things in a little bit different way than we've done them historically. So Melissa, thank you for being here today and spending a little time learning about the board. We also, as I think you're all aware, created a little bit different position. Laura was our public relations manager. We changed that position to external affairs manager and changed the duties around a little bit. And I'm happy to report that we have filled that position, and Jennifer Terry will be returning to Des Moines Waterworks as our external affairs manager effective on the 8th of October. So I, for one, am very excited about that. And so is Jen, and we've got a lot of things plan and a lot of work we want to do. So making some progress there. Goals update. We've been tracking these goals. It's been an interesting year, I have to say, but in spite of the fact that it's been interesting, we are making some progress on some important projects here. Our customer information system, a big job. Amy and her team have been working very hard. The pandemic has made that challenging because the resource can't all be on site, but they've been doing a lot of that virtually, and they are still making progress. And we are still on track for launching that thing after Thanksgiving. So it's coming along, and incredibly important part of our customer experience is our customer information system. So there's a quick update there on that. The wholesale rate design, I think you're all very familiar with where we are on the wholesale rate design. We've been working with Raftellus all year. They've presented to at least 2 committee meetings to share some proposals on what they believe we need to do about our cost of service and what we could do from a rate design perspective to address some of what we need to do about our cost of service. And our goal is to bring some thoughts to the board at October Finance and Audit in terms of a recommendation in terms of what we should do from a wholesale rate design perspective. So that project is very much on track, and we hope to have that resolved by the end of the year. Lead service lines. The lead service line process has taken a little bit of a hit because of COVID, but not really on our side, more on the EPA's side. They were intending to issue the new rule in 2020, and early in the year they kind of got quiet about what they're going to do with the new rule and whether it's even going to come out this year. Jenny and I have talked about this recently, and we're anticipating it's not going to come out this year. So we are continuing to move ahead with the pieces that we can do, working hard on our lead service line map or inventory, if you will, so that we'll be able to tell people with some amount of certainty whether we believe they have a lead service line at their house or not. Some customer communication pieces, I've already talked to Melissa a little bit about that we might use her to help us put together some customer communication information on lead service lines and what that means if you happen to have one. But the actual replacement plan will probably be put off until we see what the new rules are. And we likely are not going to see the new rules by the end of this year. So we feel like we're on track with that, although it's a little bit different than what we had originally proposed at the beginning of the year before we knew about the pandemic. But it's moving along pretty well. And then from a safety perspective, we really got off on the right foot early in the year with our safety goal. The Central Safety Committee decided to focus on sprains and strains. One of our biggest areas of concern in terms of employee injuries every year, sprains and strains. We did a number of things, which you've heard about, the stretching programs and the physical therapist who we had come in and work with various work groups on their high intensity tasks. And we were doing a lot of things and making some progress. And then there was a pandemic and it was more difficult for us to get together. The stretching programs kind of fell off. But I'm happy to say that groups have started to find a way to do their morning stretching, and they're just going outside and doing it in open areas. And more and more of the groups are getting back into that, and there's continued focus there. We have experienced 5 recordable injuries thus far in 2020. Our goal is not more than 6, and the goal is simply stated as just that number. It's a very hard and fast goal of not more than 6. So if you do the math, we're not on track there, but we're still hopeful. We're still hopeful that we won't have more than 1 more. In fact, we're hopeful we won't have any more, but it has been a little bit challenging. Central Safety Committee has started meeting again. Got some fresh new membership there, thanks to the union for finding some folks. We had folks, as with every committee, some folks who were ready to rotate off. We found some great new additions to that committee. And so we're making progress, but technically that goal is not on track. We're still hopeful, though, that we can meet it if we can avoid injuries the rest of the year. So that's the update. Happy to answer any questions if anybody has them. Very good. Diane, I think you're muted.
Okay, hearing no questions, I think you have in your packet the contract status spreadsheet and the lien certifications and reversals. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that. Is there anything else that needs to come before the board?
Not that I'm aware of.
Move to
Hearing none.
adjourn.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thanks, Sue. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.